The Devil's Music, Part 1. The Shades. It seemed as if Buddy was always on the road with his saxophone. Because Buddy was good. He was a well-respected jazz musician, but like all well-respected jazz musicians, he didn't like the J word. Jazz seemed like a nonsense word that tried to encapsulate something that had already been perfectly described by the word music. Buddy thought of himself simply as a musician, and he was a musician who was lucky enough to be always working, always on the road. But this road wasn't just the proverbial highway. This was the freeway. He'd probably traveled it thousands of times, but he didn't recognize it. And this time, he was walking. Approaching an intersection, he saw, fixed to a huge cylindrical concrete support, a beautifully presented bouquet of roses, and just a little further along, two other bouquets of, well, he had no idea what they were. Blue ones, orange ones, some white ones. The flowers looked fresh and alive with color. As the warm air was thick with the smell of petrol and dust, he decided to sample their fragrance. It was then that he saw a card attached to the bouquet of roses marked, "For Buddy. Goodbye, old friend." On the second bouquet, another card read, "So long, Buddy." And on the third, "With love always, dearest Buddy." Idly wondering as to the fate of his unlucky namesake, he caught sight of a small lake by the roadside, shaded by drooping willows. After long stretches of nothing but industrial suburban wasteland, the incongruity of such Arcadian beauty was compelling to say the least. Nearing the shade of the lake, all he could see beyond it were boundless meadows, and he began to wonder, keen observer of nature as he was, why he hadn't noticed while he was walking where the wasteland had stopped and this sprawling pastoral tapestry had begun. Turning away from the willows and the lake to follow the meadow path, he heard a voice call softly, "Not that way. The shades. Come to the shades." The voice was female, and at once beguiled by it, he was more than happy to obey the sweet, seductive tones and follow the whispering sound up ahead of what he felt sure were rustling skirts brushing against leaves. Not far before him, he glimpsed a figure with long flaxen tresses hanging down her back, which led him through sunlit, dappled glades, down a makeshift flight of steps made of tree roots, soil, and twigs, and out into what seemed to be an even more resplendent, jasmine-scented meadow than the one he might have chosen. He could scarcely take his eyes from the flaxen tresses of the figure ahead. There was no way of telling whether or not the possessor was either shapely or young, but he sensed that she was both, in the measured sway of her hips beneath her long rustic tunic, and the grace of her movement as she led him insouciantly, ever further into the bucolic wilderness. A maid in a glade. The Glade Maid, he mused. No. Just because it rhymed, that didn't make it into a great song title. A little passé, too. Instinctively, he broke into a gentle trot to be nearer to her, and yet at every attempt he made to follow closer, the distance seemed to grow greater between them, despite the fact that her pace never showed any sign of even slight acceleration. He was about to call to her when he felt droplets of rain on his face. Persistent rain, and yet a bright blue sky and sunshine were all he could perceive. In point of fact, it was just the sort of rain you wanted on a day like this. It didn't make you wet, but it refreshed you, cooled you, and tickled your face. He opened his mouth. The taste of this rain was at once fruitsome and invigorating. Tasting Rain, he thought. Great album title. On he walked, his saxophone case in hand, in this perfect blend of unsoaking raindrops and sunshine, with the girl whose face he seemed destined never to see still leading up ahead, until he saw before him, way down below in the distance, a clear blue river, and at its bank a figure that arrested his attention abruptly, like a fat spider in a gleaming white bath. A barge, a cowled oarsman staring, it seemed, impassively before him, out onto the water. The girl was gone, and Buddy knew his way lay towards the boatman in the hood. In that moment, it at once became clear in Buddy's mind. He had died. Somehow he hadn't noticed, and here he was, on his way to meet Charon, the boatman of the river Styx, who would take him across the lake in his simple barge. Yet Buddy was perfectly at peace with the idea, and he could still taste the rain. So, he reflected, the flowers had been for him after all. Those beautiful flowers, the tributes. He gazed back at the meadows which had seemed resplendent with red and yellow flowers, and he saw that they now were black. The dark asphodel that only grew in the Elysian fields of Hades.
"Oi, where do you think you're going? Bloody seaside? Ticket, mate."
The voice was harsh, unpleasant. It came from a man whose pin-like legs looked as if they might soon be unable to bear the weight of his blubbersome frame.
"You need a ticket for the boat. You want the boat, don't you? Nobody comes here just for a bloody picnic."
I don't have any money," stammered the poor, impoverished jazz musician.
"Did I ask you for any money?"
said the man with dark jocularity.
"Now, single or return?"
"Return? This is hell, right?"
"No, hell is where you're going. This is Elysium. You obviously came through the shades, right? What's in the case?"
"Oh, it's a tenor saxophone."
"So, you're one of those, are you? A chosen one? Cursed, more like. You might have gone to heaven, but he wants you down here because of your music. Too talented for your own good, aren't you? Now, single or return?"
"I'm guessing there is no coming back, but, I'll take a return anyway," said Buddy agreeably.
"On the off chance, eh?"
grinned the man, who, Buddy thought, resembled a hot-tempered Humpty Dumpty. "That's a cruel joke."
"Listen, mate, you're going to hell. You left joke behind at the Stygian shades." "A return. There you go. Give his satanic majesty my regards."
He grinned sourly and added,
"Some have it luckier than others."
And then he added in a bitter shout,
"I trained at the Royal Academy of Music."
Buddy was at a loss to reply, and, forcing his ticket into the back pocket of his jeans, Buddy made his way to the banks of the river Styx, where Charon was still gazing imperturbably across the lake from his little barge. Excuse me, but what time do you set off, sir?" asked Buddy as he neared the cowled figure. Charon turned his head slowly and mournfully back towards the bank at the ingenuous Buddy. Don't tell me you're in a hurry.